Welcome everyone to my review of Sia's music. Not her music, her movie titled music. It's slightly more complicated than it needs to be. For starters, let me talk about the main quality of this movie. It's dull. Seriously, this movie is incredibly boring. It's like 10% of this movie is rage-inducing and offensive, and then the rest of the 90% is just boring. Originally, I wanted to do a react video, filming myself watching and reacting to the movie, but there was barely anything to react to. So instead, I'm going to give you a play-by-play of the scenes, give you my thoughts. That way, you don't have to soldier through this like I did. So, let's get to it. The very first scene of this movie is music in her underwear getting pants on. Yeah. The very first scene of this movie is of an underage girl in her underwear. Classy! This leads into the very first musical number. This is a scene where Music's face has been darkened for some reason, and Sia got a lot of backlash for it. I personally don't understand why her skin was darkened. There's literally no reason to it. Is she supposed to look like she has a suntan? It was just a really bizarre and, dare I say, off-colored artistic choice. When Music started moving in this scene, all I could think was, oh gosh, I really hope her movements and facial expressions are just exaggerated for the musical number. And while some of them are, some of them aren't. I think Music's mannerisms and facial expressions are best described as how a bully would act to mock an autistic person. It's way over the top and honestly offensive. So after that musical number, Music wakes up, she heads into the kitchen, her grandma makes her eggs, braids her hair, and she goes off for her daily walk. On this walk, you meet a few integral characters. George the landlord, Ebbo the neighbor, and Felix the kind boy who lives across the street. While Music is on her walk, her grandmother has a stroke and dies. When her body is being wheeled away, one of the EMTs asks George, the landlord, if the grandmother had any other living relatives. Enter Zoo, Music's older half-sister. You see her asleep at an AA meeting just to hammer home how much of a garbage person she is and just how much growth she has to do. And good golly gosh, don't you want to join her on her journey of growth? No, not really. She's woken up, she gets a call from George, she heads over to the apartment, and George hands her this big envelope. He says he doesn't know what's in it, but her grandmother wanted her to have it in case of an emergency. At night, she goes to bed, looks throughout the envelope, and it's this book of music that has, Music's schedule, allergies, all this information on her. And this is a scene where you find out that Zoo is actually short for kazoo. The characters' names are Kazoo and Music. It's later revealed that their mother was a big junkie, and maybe that's why they have such bizarre names. But let's be real here. She is the one who named the characters. I have no idea where she got these ideas, but she should probably put them back where where she found them. The next morning, Music wakes Zoo up. Zoo makes her breakfast, and when Music asks her to braid her hair, since Music's only mostly non-speaking, she does say a few things, Zoo says that she doesn't know how to braid hair. This causes Music to go into a meltdown. Zoo's panicking, and with all this hubbub going on, there's a knock on the door. Zoo answers it, and it's the neighbor Ebo. So, after Sia got backlash for having restraining scenes in this movie, she said that she put a warning at the beginning of the movie about how dangerous restraint can be. And she also said that she'd remove the restraint scenes. Well, neither happened. There was no warning, and both restraint scenes are still in this movie. And this is the first one. Ebo sees Music having a meltdown. He comes in and he says to her, "I'm going to crush you with my love." And he gets on top of her and puts his weight onto her. Not only is this scene disturbing because it's an autistic person having a meltdown being physically restrained against their will, it's being portrayed as an act of love. He says, "I'm crushing you with my love." And Zoo even goes, "Are you hurting her? Is she okay?" And he goes, "No, it's fine." It's not fine. Restraining people like this has been lethal. He's not helping her. He's hurting her. But of course, because this is a fictional movie, it works. And Music's fine now, and Ebo braids her hair and she goes on her daily walk. Zoo and Ebo follow, and Zoo asks how Ebo knows how to deal with Music. And he explains that back in his country of Ghana, he had a brother who is exactly like Music. He says that his brother is now dead and that in Ghana, special needs aren't well known, and in some cases is even seen as a curse, which to me seems like a pretty yikesy depiction of the people of Ghana. You also find out on this walk that Zoo is trying to get to paradise, aka Costa Rica, and that Ebo is a boxing teacher for kids. The next day, you find out that Zoo's actually a drug dealer. She goes to her boss, gets some drugs to sell, and goes to this rich woman to sell them. This woman says, "Oh, I have a loaded friend who'd love to talk to you." And this is important to the plot. So after that gripping scene, we see Ebo teaching Music how to use a voice-generating device so she can say things like, "Yes, no, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm scared." And then they hear Zoo calling them from the street, and she set up a little kiddie pool with water in it, and this leads to the next musical scene, and then that's the end of that scene. From there, they go to where Ebo teaches boxing, and you see that Felix, the kind kid from across the street, is one of his students. Then Zoo, Ebo, and Music go through a walk in the park. Ebo explains that Music always wears headphones because she has super sensitive hearing, and that Music can hear and understand everything that they're saying. Then a bunch of noisy kids run by, it causes Music to have a meltdown, and Zoo tells Ebo to do that thing again. You know, the physical restraint. He says no, because he doesn't want to climb on top of a small screaming white girl in the middle of the park, which is fair, but maybe he shouldn't be climbing on her at all. So he tells Zoo that she has to do it. Insert second restraint scene. I really wish these scenes weren't in here, not just because they depict something horrible, and normalize it, but it also adds nothing to the plot. Although, to be fair, there are a lot of scenes in here that add nothing to the plot. However, those scenes aren't nearly as rage inducing as this one. But again, like before, physically restraining music works, and she's fine now, and they go get snow cones because apparently in this universe, physically restraining people is a-okay. After that scene, which makes me want to scream into the abyss, the three of them head back to the apartment, and Ebo explains that his ex-wife left him for his brother, and after some talking, Zoo asks Ebo to stay, and he says no, and this leads to the next musical number, which just shows that Zoo and Ebo have confusing emotions for each other, and that Zoo and music are getting closer. The next day, you see Ebo teaching boxing, and Felix is there, and you learn that Felix doesn't want to be a boxer, he wants to be a dancer, but his dad's pressuring him to be a boxer. And then it goes to evening, and Ebo is with Zoo in music, and he's playing a song on the piano, and this is where we learned that this is a song that the grandmother wrote, and Zoo sings along while Ebo plays piano. Then Ebo reveals that he got an invitation to his brother and ex-wife's wedding, and Zoo says that she and music can go with him, and he says he'd like that. Ebo suggests that maybe he can stay the night, and then he decides against it, and this starts the next musical number with Ebo in comically gigantic pants. I mean huge pants. And it really takes away from what's supposed to be like this serious moment of self-reflection. Why is he in giant pants? The next day, Zoo goes to visit the loaded friend, the one rich woman told her about, and brings music along because she can't find anyone to take care of her. And this scene, it made me cringe the entire time. Okay, so Zoo goes in there, and she's talking to the receptionist, and she sees like a display in the back, and she goes, "Is that a Sia wig?" And it's like Sia's wig that's like half platinum blonde, half black, covers most of her face. The receptionist's like, no. She's like, "Is Sia here?" They're actually name dropping Sia. And the receptionist's like, no. And from the back you hear, "Is that the drug dealer?" And she goes to the back, and it's Sia. Sia is in this movie playing herself. So Sia explains that she wants to buy a bunch of these strong painkillers because she's doing charity work. Apparently there was an earthquake in Haiti, and they need painkillers, but all they have is Tylenol, and even the Red Cross can't get in. So Sia's going to buy all these strong painkillers, put them on her private jet, fly over to Haiti, and give them out. And she says, "Pop stars without borders." And oh my gosh, this scene was just a bad idea from conception. It's just so bad. I don't know why Sia felt she had to put herself in the movie, but she really shouldn't have. Anyways, so Zoo goes to her drug dealing boss, says she needs all of these pain meds to sell this person. Her boss goes, "I don't trust you, but I'll give them to you." He also asks if she could deliver some drugs to someone, and she asks what it is, and he says it's medicine for HIV. So she goes to deliver it. And who's the customer buying? It's Ebo, the African character. has AIDS. And the thing is that this plotline doesn't need to be here. It does nothing to the plot. All it does is show Ebo that Zoo is a drug dealer. But he could have found out in another way. This just seems unnecessarily, offensively stereotypical. Oh, he's from Africa. He must have AIDS. So many people complained about this movie being offensive to autistics. But you could remove everything that has to do with autism in this movie, and it would still be bad and offensive. It just seems like with so many things in this movie that Sia just wasn't thinking. So after that scene, Zoo goes to take the drugs to Sia's character. She has some in her backpack. She has music with her. She's going through the park. And Music sees a snow cone vendor. She wants a snow cone. So Zoo's like, okay. She takes her backpack off, puts it down, get her wallet out. And then Music gets stung by a bee. She's allergic. Zoo rushes her to the hospital. Music gets the EpiPen. And then suddenly Zoo realizes she left her backpack with all the drugs in it on the ground at the park. She rushes back to the park after Music has recovered and realizes her backpack's not there. And she starts absolutely freaking out. They head back home. Zoo is still panicking. Music goes to bed and Zoo gets drunk. While this is going on, there's a boxing tournament for Ebo's students. And it's Felix's turn to go up and compete. And you can tell he really doesn't want to. His parents are in the audience, and instead of fighting his opponent, he ends up hugging his opponent. His opponent starts crying. His dad starts yelling. And then we go back to Zoo, who's out getting drunk. Zoo starts drunkenly walking home. Felix is back home and he's seeing this happen. And then he looks back to his computer. He sees filling out an application to get Music a service dog, because apparently getting a service dog is just as easy as a friend filling out an application form for you, and that's just it. You know, apparently getting a service dog is like the easiest thing. You know, Sia said she did research, but watching this movie, I'm curious as to what she actually researched. When Felix has done the application process, he hears noise outside his bedroom, so he leaves and sees his father being violent. When the father goes to attack the mother, Felix jumps in to stop him, but the father smacks him back. He falls back, hits his head, cracks it open, and he dies. Felix dies. And this adds nothing to the plot. There's no funeral. All there is a musical number that shows him joining the grandmother. And that's it. Nothing after that. He's never mentioned. There's no funeral. There's no mourning. Nothing. All he does, he applies music for a service dog and then dies. This kid hasn't even said anything. He hasn't even had a line of dialogue. And he's just killed off for no reason. The only reason for it is, hey audience, be sad, cry tears. That's it. It's just tug at heartstrings. That's literally it. And it's infuriating. So after Felix dies, you see Zoo walking home drunkily. She trips and busts her nose on the concrete stairs of the apartment building. In desperation, she goes to George crying, says she has no one else. She doesn't know what to do. And he says, come in, let's get you cleaned up. This leads to her going back to her AA meetings, after trying to find a job, she confronts her boss saying, like, I'm going to get you the money. And he seems incredibly okay with this. And it's like, really? Like, that's it? It's like, see, you wanted to, like, wrap everything up without Zoo having to face any serious consequences. When in reality, she would. Unfortunately for Zoo, no one's hiring, so she can't find a job. In the end, she decides to put music into an institution. She packs up her stuff, and when the two of them are leaving to head to the institution, you see Ebo getting into the taxi to go to his brother's wedding. Zoo tries to call to him, but the taxi just drives off, so she goes to the institution. She sees the tiny bedroom that Music would be staying in. She sees how unhappy Music is. So, of course, she doesn't go through with it. They go running off to the wedding. Ebo gets called on stage to say a few words. He talks about how he used to think he knew what love was, but now he's not so sure, and he's happy for the couple. And then in comes Zoo and Music, and they go up on stage. She says she's quit her job as a drug dealer and that she's sober. And then she suggests that they play the grandma's song. He plays piano, she sings. When he starts playing, oh, it's not Zoo that starts singing, it's Music. Final scene is the three of them in the apartment. They're all happy. And there's a knock at the door. Zoo answers the door. And what's there? It's Music's service dog that Felix applied for. You know? The character who died for no reason. And then it's the final music number. This movie didn't need to exist for any reason. The movie is titled Music, but Music isn't the main character. She's just a prop. She was just there to move Zoo's story along. She didn't have any growth. She didn't have any character arc. Heck, she didn't even have a character. Sia said that this movie was supposed to be like a love letter to the autistic community. But I don't see how. This movie wasn't about the autistic character. There were so many bad decisions when it comes to this movie. And even if you removed everything that had to do with autism in this movie, it still wouldn't be a good movie. It was boring. It was offensive. It was nothing. You know, you get bad movies that are fun to watch because it's sort of like they're so bad they're good, like Manos, Hands of Fate, or The Room, or Birdemic. But then you get the movies that are just bad. They don't make you laugh. They don't make you feel anything except rage in this case, and boredom. I can only assume that this movie got nominated for Golden Globes literally just because it checked off certain requirements. You know, autistic character? Check. Sad scene where character dies? Check. Love story? Check. Character recovering from alcoholism and growing? Check. I'm glad that this movie didn't win any Golden Globes, but it really shouldn't even been nominated. It's a nothing sandwich. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. I would say just let this movie fade off into obscurity. But this movie can be used as an example of what not to do. If it wasn't for that fact alone, I would say just let it disappear. I'm annoyed at the fact that when autistic people criticize Sia, she didn't take that criticism to heart. She just lashed back. It wasn't until other people saw the movie and complained and criticized her that she actually owned up to, oh, geez, okay, I guess I made a mistake. It shouldn't have taken that. She should have heard our voices, the voice of autistic people, and taken that into account. A lot of people get upset about the fact that the autistic character was not played by an autistic actor. And there was an autistic actor who was originally supposed to play music, but then Sia fired her and then ended up just admitting that it was nepotism. She had to have Maddie play music. And I can't put a whole lot of blame on Maddie because originally she didn't want to do this, but she was a minor coerced into it by an adult that she held in high regard. She told Sia that she didn't want to do this because she was worried she was going to offend people. And she did. She saw this coming. I don't know enough about Maddie to know how she feels about this role now. But I feel that most of the blame should land on Sia. It's not just that music wasn't played by an autistic actor. It was the fact that there was no autistic writers, no autistic directors, no autistic producers, no autistic editors. There was not even any autistic acting coaches. All she did was ask a few people, do research, and get in contact with Autism Speaks. By watching this, you can tell she didn't care about what autistic people thought. If she did, she would have gotten more autistic people involved with the creation process. I don't know, maybe get autistic people in the test screening audience. Much like the character music herself, autism is a prop in this. That's it. It's just there to move Zoo's story along. This is not a movie about autism or an autistic person at all. My final thoughts are, I honestly wish I had never seen this movie. However, if me watching this movie and doing this review convinces people who were going to watch the movie out of morbid curiosity, if it convinces them not to watch it, it's worth it. And those are my thoughts. See ya! Hey everyone! Thanks for watching to the end of this video. Now, some of you may know this isn't my usual thing. I make comic strips, Autie-biographical to be exact. If you want to check it out, I'll put links down below. If you want to support me, check out my Patreon. And if you're interested, check out my other videos. Clips of my live streams, full videos of my live streams. Usually I do 3 live streams a month, and I always announce it on my pages. So come and join if you want. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I shall see you next time. If there is a next time. I don't know if I want there to be a next time where I make a video of a review of a horrible movie with stereotypes of autism. But we'll see.